This is the Josh Tolley Show on the GCN Radio Network.
All right, second hour, Josh Tolley Show. And if you want to be part of it today, 1-800-259-5791. 1-800-259-5791. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all those fun social sites, and, of course, the website, JoshTolley.com, JoshTolley.com, where you can get your copy of Evangelpreneur. Just click on the button, and it'll take care of you. All right, so we are in the middle of one of the most interesting, fascinating conversations that I've ever been a part of on this show. Because this is outside of our show's normal wheelhouse, talking about politics and all that sort of stuff, we are hearing from listeners, Josh, this is crazy. Josh, this is right on. Josh, this is demonic. I mean, listen, I get it. And this is outside of our typical wheelhouse, but that's exactly why I wanted to have these nice folks on, is to give us their story, their perspective. I'm not hoping they change your beliefs. I'm not trying to change theirs. It's just a testimony of what they're going through, their perspective, and that's what we're treating it as. And if you have a different belief, then either A, this confirms what you think, or B, it's challenging you to have better conversations with people who think the same way. So I just wanted to give that context. Everybody take a big, deep breath, and let's get back to it. All right, so Gordon and Janet. Janet, we left off talking to you, and you were about how your cat turned in – this does sound a little weird. Your cat turned into an alien. I want to know a little bit more. And then what is a Zeta hybrid?
Okay. First of all, I feel like the alien probably turned into the cat and then back to the alien and then into the cat, because aliens
can shapeshift.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, because aliens can show themselves the way you're most comfortable, and I'm a cat lover, so they knew I was more comfortable with cats, so they showed themselves as a cat, so I would watch him and know he was around me. But I really feel that they've been in my life for a long time, and I grew up on an island where the fishermen would go offshore to rescue a boat, and the UFO it would be a UFO and it'd take right off into the sky because they can go underwater. So it's not like it wasn't something I grew up with around me. And so my mother and I saw one when I was 18, and then it went on to in 1991 I had a great UFO sighting.
Well, this is our first incident together. We started living together in October of 1990, and on June 9th, 1991, she was having a dream that we were on a saucer, and I was talking to three tall praying mantis type humans with hoods, and they don't want to shock you, so they wear robes and hoods. And she interrupted, and she said, "I don't want to just see you in my dreams. I want to see you for real." And she woke up and went downstairs, and there, over a maple tree in our yard, was a 30-foot disc. So she called for me and came and got me, and we went downstairs, and we saw it in our yard about 50 feet away, a 30-foot disc. It was nickel-colored. It had a beautiful dome on the top, and it was ionizing the air around the disc orange and the air around the dome red. And it was just the most awe-inspiring. There was nothing threatening about it. In fact, there was this overwhelming feeling of unconditional love, and it was a real spiritual experience. And as we stood there and watched it, it slowly sashayed away to the west. And this is about 4:30 in the morning on June 9th, 1991. That was the first time that we had something like that happen physically in front of us. And since then, we've had almost 4 times that we've had ships, no two alike, in our yard, and even ETs in our yard, and even ETs in our house.
And now, what's happening to me now is I'll have a dream of ships all around me, telling me one time, two Christmases ago, I was concerned about Gordon, and I said in the dream state, I said, what would I do without Gordon? And they started flying around me in the dream. And when I woke, and they told me,
the next time you go outside, we'll show you that we're always there with you.
They said, we're always with you, Janet. So the next time you go out, we'll show ourselves to you. So the next day was a Christmas that was
December 27th,
the worst
2013.
Weather ever. Even the stores had to close before Christmas. It was such bad weather. And we live on a mountaintop. You could hardly see your hand in front of your face. There was no planes
Fog
out.
and drizzle.
Nothing.
And she rounded the corner of the house looking towards the top of the mountain, and there was a huge spherical mothership glowing bright LED red.
About 2 times
and
the size of the full moon.
And she kept calling for me to come out, and by the time I came out, it winked out just before I got there. But they were showing Janet that they're always with her. They said they would do that the next time you go out.
And they've done this several times since, and this is how they contact me, in the dream state, and then I wake up and I get to go see them. But also, that ship that I saw, the big red sphere, is the same one that was on the news about President Obama's pilot saw a big red disc in the sky, sphere. It's just like the one I saw.
And that was back in '84 or something.
So as far as satanic or whatever you want to call it.
Forget it.
We're always saying prayers. I'm very spiritual. My whole life has been, what is the meaning of life? And I've been very... I see lights, auras around people that are in the light.
We both see auras.
Right.
We're telepathically. We talk to each other without opening our mouths.
And I can see dark auras around people that are evil, and I steer clear of anything that's not of the light.
When people walk down the street, she sees their true self, and even though they might have perfect makeup and hair and jewelry and a nice clothing, she sees them as the sick, perverted, twisted people they really are. So when you can see on that level, you know, there's no fooling you.
No, and as far as being crazy...
I would just say stay out of D.C., Janet.
Yeah, New York and everywhere
else.
Else.
Well, I've been there, and I've felt the whole vibration, and don't you worry. I love the country. I'm in contact with nature. I can do dream time like the Aborigines in... Australia. I can dream what animals I'm going to see the next day. I can dream about plants I'm going to find. And I can also dream about who I'm going to see the next day.
Right. I know, like, who's going to call me.
All right,
or
Janet,
who's
but
calling
I got to ask you about this hybrid. Because
my God,
I'd like to give the story of the Zetas. The Zetas are human beings on the constellation Zeta Reticuli. And they evolved to a point where they had space travel. And then they had a war in industry, and they destroyed their planet. So they decided that they were going to clone themselves from then on and eliminate sexuality and emotions and create small space-traveling bodies without digestive systems so that they could live in space easily. And at one point, the Council of Worlds, which is the unselfish group of unselfish ETs, asked them to come to Earth. And this was a long time ago. Extraterrestrials have been coming to Earth for millions of years. And they came to Earth, and they were studying humans. And then their cloning stopped working. And they go, oh, my God, what are we going to do now? And then they checked our DNA, and our DNA matches theirs perfectly. So what they've done is they've gone around finding the most intentional, intelligent, emotional people on Earth and mixing their eggs and sperm with the eggs, genetically with the Zeta eggs and sperm, and they have created a new race. And this new race is the race that's going to be born starting after pole shift. It's being born now, but they're living in invisible cities where you can't see them and you have nothing to do with them. But they are humans in the future are going to live 400 years, have IQs of 300, be totally telepathic, emotional, and sexual. They're going to have children, and they're going to have access to anything that anybody else in the universe knows through telepathy. So, and they've picked Janet. She had her tubes tied so she couldn't have children, and she would have a dream of long-necked horses working with her, and then 6 weeks later she would have an afterbirth, and that night before the afterbirth she would have a dream of the long-necked horses working with her over a table. Then they started bringing her up on the Zeta ships to meet her children so they would get to know their mother.
What? Okay, hold on. I'm up against the break. Hold on. Stay there.
You're killing us, Josh.
Back right after this. All right, Janet. So you get visited by these creatures, these beings.
They're not really creatures. To me,
they're humans. They're little gray humans.
when I see them and I see the ships, I feel like I'm dealing with unconditional love. I feel like they're more spiritual than we are. And I feel that I speak telepathy with them. And I just feel very comfortable with them. So to me, they're not creatures. I love nature anyway, and nothing's a creature to me. And also, I just want to add that seeing is believing.
Yeah, but that wasn't a bad thing. I mean,
right.
The term creatures, could be a squirrel.
Okay, I get you. See, I went to shamanic school, so I'm really in touch with the animals, and But anyway, I just want to say seeing is believing, and when you see your first UFO, it's like, oh yeah, they are here. And so I sort of wouldn't judge somebody as being demonic when they talk about ETs or UFOs.
Okay.
And so I'll tell you, I've been even before I had my tubes tied, I've been having pregnancies and miscarriages for no reason. I was married for a while, and I lived with somebody, a billionaire, for 10 years, and I was fixed at that time, but I was still behaving like I was pregnant. I was lactating.
Yeah, you'd miss your period.
I would get to the three.
So she's had a lot of children.
This has been going on
6 weeks at a time for maybe 30, 40 years.
Yeah, and I would go up on the ships. They would show me their children. I've held some in my hand. I've had them pass a child to me, and they named him. And they said his name was Shanley. And then I met one of my daughters, and she said, "Where would you like to go? The moon and Mars?" And she took me. Now
on a flying saucer.
Yeah, on a flying saucer. Now a lot of this we have all. This is on like a ethereal realm. Like the Aborigines say, dream time is you're more awake than you are when you're you're asleep. Yeah, that's when you're most awake. And this is when I do a lot of my work is in the dream time, when I'm asleep, out of body. But then they actually let me see them when I'm awake. So with these, but sometimes they just take my astral body up on the ships. I meet my children. And over this year, all these years that I've been having been part of this hybrid program, I have gradually seen the children becoming more and more human-like. And they're very highly intelligent. They're very telepathic.
And they can talk.
They're telepathic.
And they're telepathic and they can talk.
Human. Totally human. So,
wow.
Now listen,
so
Josh.
Let's get a little to this. Let's get a little to some of the other things you stated, because I am running out of time.
Yeah, I know, and I want to mention these things so we can
tell us about pole shift.
Yeah. We can come back to this, some other time. Right. Anything that I mentioned, but I really want to race through it. First of all, I have a radio show every Friday night from midnight to 2 in the morning on Freedom's Lips. It also reads freedomslips.com, Studio A, and my producer started putting my shows starting in May on my YouTube channel, which is the Gordon James Gianninoto YouTube channel. And that's how you pronounce my name. Gianni is Italian for John, and Noto is a fishing village in Sicily where my father was from. So I have a Scottish mother, so I have the Gordon James Gianninoto. That's how you pronounce it. But I'm not selling anything, and I don't have a website. If you do a search on Google, you should come up with over 100,000 links to my full name, if you put it in quotes. And so what I want to say is that for about 2 billion years, there has been a planet trailing hundreds of moons and trillions of rocks and all kinds of volcanic iron oxide dust and hydrocarbon dust behind it, known as the winged globe, the planet of crossing. It was known by the Sumerians as Nibiru, by the Egyptians as Neteru, and it was named by many people as Planet X. It was first discovered when the government, knowing what the Zetas had said to them, the selfish Zetas, because that's who the government was in contact with starting in 1947, They knew that it was coming from the direction of Orion, so they sent up the IRIS satellite in 1983, and in December of 1983 they had a huge announcement on the front page of every newspaper in this country, the Miami Herald, the Chicago Herald, the New York Times, the LA Times, all of them, Planet X discovered. And JPL and NASA claimed that they working together, they had spotted it with this infrared satellite at a great distance heading towards the solar system. And the very next day, they said, oh, gee, we were mistaken. Now, when's the last time you heard NASA say that, or JPL? They said, we're mistaken. We thought we had spotted it, but we didn't. We're still looking. And at that point, President Reagan issued an executive order that made it top secret to ever discuss Planet X again. And it wasn't until 2012 that President Obama overturned that executive order with another order. So what's been happening here is that for 2 billion years, this planet trailing moons, and it is 29,000 miles in diameter. It is oceanic, atmospheric, and volcanic. It's surrounded by clouds, and there are huge volcanic rifts which emit an orange glow into the clouds. So people, when they see it, they think, oh, that's a comet. And then they see the tail of iron oxide dust and the rocks and things, and they go, oh, that's a comet. Well, it isn't a comet. And it's been coming through our solar system, and one of its moons collided with one of the planets in between Mars and Jupiter, and that's what the mess is in between Mars and Jupiter. But it was not a collision. And the reason why there are no collisions, and I want you to hold on to something and not fall over when I say this, but gravity pushes, it doesn't pull. I know you've been told the opposite for 400 years. It's a great lie, and it's being used to cover this up. But the thing is you never hear astronomers having meetings saying we've got to do something about this terrible problem of suns colliding and planets colliding. It just doesn't happen. And you look at black holes. They found a black hole that was spitting out 2 blue stars, and the reporter goes, are they going to hit Earth? And they go, oh, no, it's not going to hit Earth. But what about the big question? Black holes are supposed to suck everything in. How can a black hole spit out 2 blue stars? Then they found a galaxy with 2 black holes next to each other, a huge one and a small one. Was the huge one sucking up the small one? No. Then they gave the Nobel Prize to physics to 2 physicists who proved that the rate of acceleration of the expansion of the universe is increasing. Now, you were told when you went to school that the universe, there's a big bang, everything went out, gravity pulls, so it's going to stop expanding, then it's going to start collapsing, it's going to come back together again, there'll be another big bang, and this just keeps happening over and over again. But instead, the truth is that gravity pushes, and the universe is expanding, and the rate of acceleration is increasing because all this pushing is going on. So this has been a great thing that was covered up. Now, Planet X has been coming through for, let's say, roughly 2 billion years. Now, the universe is 16.5 billion years old, and Earth is supposed to be 4.5 billion. Of course, all these figures are subject to upgrading as soon as science learns more, which they're very slow at doing. So,
yeah, they're slow on a lot of things. Hold on 1 second. We're up against another break. 2 segments left. So much to jam in them.
Yes.
Back right after this. All right, we're talking to Gordon and Janet. Right now we're talking a little bit about pole shift, expanding universe, gravity. It's not what we think it is. I got to ask you, if the pole shift is coming, why Bangor, Maine? You mentioned earlier that you moved there to prepare for it.
No, we live
Is
on
it
a
just
we
because
live
Stephen
on
King
a
has a secret, or
we live on a mountaintop. There's only 2 places in the world that
Okay.
are going to go up at pole shift. They were both held down by glaciers. One is New Zealand and the other is Maine, and they're going to go up about 500 feet. The rest of the world is going to have 600-foot tidal surge, and when that subsides, all the ice in the world will be in the wrong place, and when that melts, the oceans will go up 700 feet, in part because a new continental island is going to arise between South America and Africa. But let me get back to Planet X coming through the solar system. So they developed, I don't know whether they arrived there and planted themselves there, or they developed there, or how it happened, but anyway, there are selfish humans on Planet X. They're 8 to 12 feet tall, and they go in a huge orbit that goes around our sun through our solar system and then back around the twin sun, which is a burned out cinder. That's why nobody can ever see it, and it's very far away. I'm not going to get a chance to discuss this right now, but it goes faster than the speed of light to get out there. It goes around it, comes back every 3,657 years. That's the period. And so they started getting cold, these selfish humans, and they go, wow, what if we powdered gold and put it in our upper atmosphere? Well, it's a huge planet with deep oceans. It's got a mass and a magnetic field 23 times the size of Earth's. So it's only 4 times bigger, but yet the magnetic field is 23 times. So they decided, what if we powder gold and put it in the atmosphere? It'll act like a space blanket and keep the water of the oceans, keep the planet warmer and make it better for us. So as they came through the solar system, they looked at Earth with all the dinosaurs and everything else, and they said, well, that's not a happy place to land. But look at Mars. It's loaded with gold, and it has no people and shallow oceans. So they landed on Mars more than 1 million years ago, maybe even 5 million years ago, and they built pyramids and other things. Their technology is rocket ships. They do not have dimensional traveling flying saucers. They have rocket ships. And they landed on Mars, and being lazy and selfish, they decided to sluice the gold. Gold is 20 times heavier than water, by draining the oceans into caverns below the surface of Mars. And so they did that, and they got huge amounts of gold, which they powdered and put into their atmosphere. But of course, that all eventually comes back down. So their problem was, how do we keep this going? And then, when all the oceans, the brackish oceans, were drained below the surface of Mars, the atmosphere changed, and they're like, uh-oh, we can't live here anymore. We better go to Earth. Now, all of this is recorded in the Sumerian tablets in cuneiform, and it's written about in a book called The 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin, which I read when it came out in 1974, and I had read Worlds in Collision by Velikovsky and all these other Hapgood's theories of tectonic plates that Einstein was interested in, all these things. So I had this complete background in all the metaphysical, what's the point of life, what are we trying to do here, which is learn and then teach, and what's going on. So then, all of a sudden, it started to make sense that this planet comes through. Now, they landed on Earth 1 million years ago, and they mined gold for 600,000 years before their DNA, their genetics caught up with them, and they said, why in the hell are we mining gold when we can create a race of dumb slaves just smart enough to mine gold, but not smart enough to know that we aren't gods? And we will tell them that we are God, and we will pretend to be God, and they will do all our work for us. And that's what they did 400,000 years ago. It's in the Sumerian tablets. You can look it up. You can read Zechariah's book. And that's why geneticists trace all of mankind back to a single woman in Africa 400,000 years ago. Using Google Earth, they found a city 200 miles by 150 miles near the gold mines of South Africa that's 250,000 years. All of this throws conventional archaeology out the window. And if you want to read more about that, read the book Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo, which is incredible. They found modern human skeletons in granite mountains in San Francisco, 300 million years old. The original humans came from Lyra. They spread around to Pleiades, and they've been traveling the universe since then. Janet has been in touch with the Zetas. I'm in touch with the Pleiadians because I've been a Pleiadian before. They're very social. That's me. So, anyway, about 400,000 years ago, they created man. These are the Adams and Eves, and this whole story of the original sin because of Satan, the selfish brother who created mankind, and what they did was made a defective pineal gland, so they wouldn't know that they're eternal souls, and they would not know that they were equal to the gods. The gods, the Anunnaki, came down. They were marrying their sisters. They were not getting along. They were fighting each other, and they each owned different cities, and then they had nuclear war between themselves too. And people said, well, geez, these people come from heaven and they're God, but look at them. Let's build a tower, the Tower of Babel, and launch a rocket ship to go up and see what the hell is going on in heaven. And that's when the Anunnaki said, oh, no, you don't. And meanwhile, the unselfish Zetas and unselfish Pleiadians and all kinds of Arcturians, Andromedians, people from all over the place were coming down and interacting with humans as well, trying to upgrade their DNA and improve them. So this whole thing from the Bible is one great lie to cover up that a selfish brother, there were twin brothers, there were Enki and Enlil, were put in charge of mining gold on Earth. And Enki was the was the selfish brother, and Enlil came down and he goes, "Oh my God, what have you done down here?" To his brother, and his symbol was a serpent, which is why everywhere except in the Bible you see a serpent as a positive influence, like the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl that went to South America, Viracocha they called them in other places in South America. These are the people who brought writing and education. Well, partly it was so they could go to war with the other members of the Anunnaki family. It was the Anunnaki pretending to be God who said, in order to worship God, you've got to kill something. And the biggest change was when Jesus was born, and he said, you no longer have to kill anything to worship God. So the last Anunnaki on Earth pretending to be God was Jehovah. And just like Eric von Daniken said, he's reading Exodus, and in Exodus, Jehovah says to Moses, build a fence all the way around the top of the mountain and make a gate, and I'm only letting you through the gate. Well, von Daniken said, I was reading that and I thought, what kind of God is my God who is afraid of the people, that he needs a fence and a gate? So that's what they were doing. Now, 2,000 years ago, they were kicked off Earth. They were not given an eviction notice, but just before Jesus was born, everything went wrong that they tried to do. And Planet X wasn't coming through at that time, and they go, oh, damn, we're getting a subtle message here to leave Earth. And the only place they could go was Mars. Well, Mars has lots of lichen on rocks. If they had brought elk, they'd still be there. But instead, they had a 5-million-year-old ruins, and they went to the deepest place on Mars, which is the Hale crater, and it's 12,000 feet below sea level. And if there's any moisture and oxygen, it's down there. And that's where they went, and they brought spaceships full of goats and sheep, hay, and in the hay were mice, and tracing the mice were snakes and birds. And then all of a sudden NASA sends a rover to the Hale crater. Gee, how'd they pick that place? And lo and behold, all the pictures they take show Anunnaki jewelry, Anunnaki dolls, drills and drilled holes, skeletons of sheep and goats, living mice. But if they had brought elk, they'd still be there eating elk. But no, they brought goats and sheep, which required hay. You can see wood beams from their buildings. You can see communications towers. You can see domed buildings. And that's where they died before Planet X could come back through. Now, Planet X...
So, okay, obvious question here is...
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You lost him.
You back?
Lost your Skype connection there for a second.
Sorry.
I'm here. We're up against a commercial break anyway, so we'll take the break, and then we'll finish this up on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Back right after this. Well, I guess a little bit of everything, and this is the last segment, so I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. I mean, there's some issues that come up with the biblical account, which I think you're missing, but that could be a whole show in and of itself. You still have a creator which created the very thing that is now creating, and it actually leaves room for two sort of creators, the original and then the imitator, but that's a whole topic in and of itself. But obviously you guys have been doing this for a long time. You've done lots of interviews, lots of different shows, millions of people have heard your tale. What do you say to people who say, this is nuts? I mean, there's no way this is actually real. And I'm not trying to put you down. I'm just saying you've had to have gotten that by now. So what's the response? Are those just people who just don't get it yet, or
most people are asleep, and the government wants you to keep asleep. The government wants you to be distracted and keep your nose to the grindstone as long as possible. But this is going to affect everyone. Now, what happened is that as Planet X came into the solar system, it North Pole. It was laying on its side with its North Pole pointing straight ahead, trailing these twin stranded tail. Huge, 10 million miles long on either side. And it came into the solar system, and it heated up and changed the colors of Neptune and Uranus. And then it created 2 extra red storms on Jupiter, which for 350 years had only 1 storm. Then it came in around the back of the sun coming from the direction of Orion in 1999, and it came around the sun in the fall of 2003. And that's when the NASA SOHO satellite started taking pictures of it. And you can go to NASA SOHO, nasa.gov SOHO. There's 8 pictures. You pick the blue and the red one, and they show the sun. They have a disc over the sun so that it doesn't burn out the lens. But you can see, every day you can see pictures of Planet X next to the sun. Now what it did, it came around going clockwise. Now Venus and the Earth go counterclockwise. All the planets go counterclockwise. So it came in the plane of the ecliptic, slightly below it, and because gravity pushes, it immediately stopped the Earth in its orbit. Then Venus went around the sun and came up and stopped as well. And then something that's never been mentioned before except by one group, which I'm going to mention now, the dark twin of Earth came around from behind the sun, and it stopped. So it's these 3 planets, each the same size, 7,500 miles in diameter, are bobbing around trying to go counterclockwise. Planet X is trying to go counterclockwise, and they've stopped each other. And there are many crop circles that show a cup, and the stem of the cup is Planet X, and the cup in the cup are the 3 circles, which are Venus, the dark twin, and Earth. Now, this woman in Wisconsin, Nancy Leader, in 1995 agreed to have a telepathic implant to take questions from the public to be answered by the unselfish Zetas. And she started this website. It's called ZetaTalk.com. And she doesn't mention most of what I've mentioned so far, but they're only about pole shift, the graduation to another dimension, and the unselfish ETs that are here, and the hybrid race. So if that's what you're interested, that's where you go. She's taken questions from the public, asked the Zetas, and typed out their answers. 40,000 pages of questions from the public and the answers in 20 years. And her name is Nancy Leader. And they used to have a Wikipedia entry that said she was a hoax, that it was a cult, that she's raising money. And I've gotten to know her quite well. I talk to her several times a week. And she is in Wisconsin. She's very poor. She has no income from this. She maintains 7 mirror sites around the world in every major language. And there's 40,000 pages of questions with diagrams, maps, illustrations, and photographs. And then there's this website that is called poleshift.ning, Ning.com, and you go there, and that's where people post pictures of Planet X that are taken every day. And I took a picture of the Planet X complex. It is not in between the Earth and the Sun. It's at the 4 o'clock position of the Sun. And I ask all your listeners to take your digital camera, don't look through the lens, just point it at the Sun and take a picture and look at it. And if that looks normal, then something's wrong with you, because there is a huge glowing caterpillar at the 4 o'clock position next to the Sun. That is Planet X. People are taking pictures of it every single day, and it's coming closer. It will come until it's 15 million miles from Earth. Then it will grab the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which is a giant iron bar on the surface of the Earth, and it will hold the crust still for 3 days, and it will draw the Earth closer to the Sun. And in the meantime, it's causing an Earth wobble. As the Earth turns and the Atlantic faces the Sun, it grabs this iron bar and pulls it down. So even though the North Pole of Planet X pushes the North Pole of Earth away, the magnetism of Planet X is so strong it pulls the Earth down. So the Sun is sitting above the North Atlantic during the day. That's why we only had 1 hurricane in the Atlantic last year. Well, as soon as the Sun sets over the Atlantic and the Sun rises over the Pacific, there's no iron bar to pull back down, so the North Pole of Planet X and the North Pole of Earth repel each other, and the Sun sits below the equator, and that's why there were 82 hurricanes in the Pacific last year. So that's the ratio, 82 to 1. Is that normal? No. This Earth wobble has been going on since 2003. Pole shift could happen at any time. The Zetas, the only clue they'll give is that it's going to happen either in April, August, or December. And The reason for that is because there are selfish people who want to kill as many people before pole shift so that afterwards they can be kings of the earth. Now, the selfish ETs told the government, oh, don't worry, we're going to build spaceships and bases on the moon and Mars. We're going to move you all there, and then after pole shift, you're going to come back, so you won't have to suffer any indignities. But then they told the selfish people and the billionaires and the military and the politicians, no, we're not taking you anywhere. We were lying. Sorry. But that's what selfish ETs do, just like selfish people. So if you go to ZetaTalk.com, you'll get every question you might want to know about this whole subject that I've brought up, except the past and the future, because they're very narrowly focused on pole shift. But after it holds the crust still, and we have 3 days of sunlight over the Atlantic and 3 days of darkness over the Pacific, it's going to grab the crust and slide it over the North Pole of Earth and let go. Now, the new South Pole is going to be Mount Everest, and the new North Pole is going to be the eastern tip of Brazil, Recife, Brazil, and from that you can figure out what your climate is going to be after pole shift. I moved to Maine because Edgar Cayce said you'll be able to grow citrus trees in Maine, and I figure that, and it remains to be seen whether this is true, but I'm hoping that it will be, this will be a place that will have the climate of the North Carolina, South Carolina line.
I'd like to add something.
So why don't the aliens just come down? I mean, if they're real, they're visiting us and all that sort of stuff. Why don't they come down and help us evacuate this planet before it goes to this
They may do that, but I'd like to add that it's how I feel that I've been on a spiritual path since I was 17, basically, and we're all, like all of us, a lot of people now are, instead of religious, they're on a spiritual path to find the meaning of life on their own without having the church. So I don't think the whole thing with what we're talking about disputes the Bible in the sense that we're all on the same page about the Creator.
Yeah, if you get the golden rule out of the Bible, you've done well. Because the thing is that people who are 51% unselfish are going to be able to graduate to this next dimension. If they die in pole shift, which 9 out of 10 will do, 60% will die in the 600-foot tidal surges, because the water will go back to the present poles when the revolution stops. Then when it starts again, the new equator goes from Alaska through Hawaii all the way around the Earth. The water is going to slosh over to the new equator. So then you're going to have all the ice in the wrong place melting. So that's where the new 700-foot level. But England, Japan, and Florida are going to sink an extra 150 feet. So we're not only talking about 700 feet in Florida, we're talking 850 in the UK and in Florida. So those places are doomed. This Operation Jade Helm is special forces being stationed because the U.S. Geological Survey told the Pentagon, and this is from the Zetas through Nancy Leader to me and to the public, because it's on Zeta Talk, it's in her newsletters, it's on poleshift.ning, that's where she takes the questions and that's where she writes the answers, and then they're moved from there to Zeta Talk. So that I think, we'd love to be back on your show to talk more about all this stuff, but this is a big broom that's going to sweep everything that's wrong with Earth away, and there are 7 billion extraterrestrials here on a next dimension waiting for us to change frequencies to the next dimension and then have open contact with mankind on Earth. And so it will be a new
folks,
Earth.
There you go. That was by
race.
far one of the most fascinating interviews I've ever had. I know a lot of you are going to agree. Many of you are going to disagree.
Well, do the research.
I just bring it to you. You decide. That does it for today, my friends. Remember, look into jury nullification. No victim, no crime. Today, tomorrow, and as always, may your path lead to heaven, and may freedom follow in your footsteps.
Some people think they're gonna die someday. I got news, yeah.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink.